The Allen Lund Company wishes the owner-operators driving across this great country happy holidays.
So welcome to the show. We obviously have been talking for what feels like decades now, Ashley, about rates being...
I have not been talking about this for decades, but
it feels like it's been decades.
In general, it's been talked about.
It feels
Carry
like
on,
it's
though.
Been decades. And we've obviously got more and more people who are really just trying to scrape by. And there, I think, is a greater interest maybe in factoring right now because of that. It's something that OOIDA has generally tried to discourage people away from over the years, but I liken this to a bit like having the talk with your teenagers that, you know, if you're gonna do it, make sure you're doing it safely because there's a right way and a wrong way and a way to get yourself in trouble if you do it the wrong way. So with that in mind, we're going to have the talk with three gentlemen here, Tom Crowley, Jim Jefferson, and Trevor Williams of OOIDA. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Yeah, good to be here.
So what we were talking about there in terms of, you guys know it better than anybody, that the rates are just not great. That's an understatement. Are you getting more and more calls, I guess, about factoring, people, you know, asking about it and maybe looking into it? What are those conversations like right now?
Yeah, we're getting calls about factoring on a regular basis. And I think a lot of it is the newer companies coming into the industry. They look at factoring as their cash flow. They come in funded with enough money to get their authority and pay for their first months of insurance, but then they're out of cash. And as everybody knows, there's some brokers out there, it could be 60 days before they pay you. So if you're underfunded, you've got to have that cash flow. And a lot of these newer companies, that's exactly what they're doing. They're coming in, they've got their authority, they're ready to run, and now they want to get a factoring company so that they've got the cash flow to continue to operate.
And I imagine there are a lot of people that think that that's the way it's done.
There are a lot of people that come in expecting this is the way it's done. I must set up this way. You know, the first thing we do when we talk to them is discuss, you know, hey, there are other ways to operate. You know, have some more funds available, maybe even a line of credit through your bank, someplace that's reasonable. You know, because factors, when you dig down into the contracts, reasonable is not in their contracts.
Yeah.
I'm going to chime in with a stupid question as to what factoring is. And I'm curious, like, do you get people calling, you know, they're starting their business and they're saying, I've heard about factoring, like, tell me more?
Right. So factoring is basically financing your accounts receivable. A lot of these guys think that once they get a factoring company gives them their money, and then that becomes the factoring company's problem to collect. That is not the case. They're not debt collectors. They're a finance company. And at the end of the day, if they're unable to collect the money that they have fronted you, they will take that money back, and it's going to cost you in the long run.
No, they like to come across with this non-recourse. Well, you know, you can get this non-recourse where you don't have to worry about it. We'll take care of it.
Any headaches you encounter, no worry, we got it.
Yeah, that's as you're coming in the door, and that's what they tell you verbally. That's not what their contracts say.
Right.
Because the contracts always, you know, the factoring company's not going to be on the hook for it. They're going to have reserves of yours that they keep just in case something goes bad, so they're not on the hook. If you haul a load, and this is a scenario that we see all the time. You go out, you haul a load, you think everything's good. You get a clean bill of lading. You get it. All right, man, we'll send this to my factoring company. I'll get paid tomorrow. So you send it in, and yeah, they send you 93% of your money or whatever they're sending. And then, so you got that money, you put it in your fuel tank or paid your bills with it. You know, a couple of weeks later, or a month later, your factoring company says, hey, there was a claim on that load, or there was an issue. And the factoring company says, oh, but we'll look at it. Week later, they come back and say, yeah, I don't know. There's still a claim. You got to give us that money back.
Yeah.
What do you do then?
Yeah.
I mean, not only did you already spend that money and have to give it back, but
you're up a creek.
You're way up a creek.
Yeah.
And this happens regularly. And something like that, it doesn't take many situations like that to put somebody out of business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to compound on that, you've got some guys, if they run a series of loads for a broker and then there's a claim, that broker isn't going to just hold the one load. They're going to hold all of the loads. So now you've got multiple loads that your factoring company has paid you for that they can't get paid for. So now they're taking all of that money back. So it could be thousands, tens of thousands of dollars that are held while they figure out what's going on with a claim.
And so the recourse part of that is essentially collateral that you're putting up by signing that piece of paper. You know, it could be other accounts receivable. It could be chattel deeds. It could be your house. It could be the kid's swing set in the backyard.
And basically the way these contracts are written is just almost everything that you own is put up as collateral. I mean, you know, so you're taking an immense amount of risk because you come in a little underfunded and you think, well, factoring company, they'll fill that gap. I mean, you got to really be careful because they're not there. They're not as much as they say they're your friends. They're there as business and they're there to make money off of you every step of the way.
Yeah. The other thing you got to watch for is the personal guarantee that's in the factoring agreement. So you're signing as the business owner, but in a lot of cases, there's a personal guarantee. So you get into a bad deal, you shut down that company, you go reopen another one, but because it's still connected to your name,
still following you around,
they just attach that company. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's in factoring agreements. If you do not read through it and understand what it means, you could run into a lot of issues. And the UCC lien is the biggest thing that nobody really pays attention to that, but that is a filing against all of the accounts receivable for your company. And once they filed that, you can't get any loans anywhere else because that blocks it out. I mean, it puts the factoring company as the number one primary to get all of the accounts receivable. So they will get their money back one way or another.
This has turned from having the talk to a scared straight. If you're familiar with that, do you know what those are? Right? You guys know what those are, right? Yeah, the scared straight.
Yeah,
They go to prison and
this is scared straight 20 years later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I want to make sure we talk about the horror stories and you know what to look for, what not to look for. I do want to ask you though, and you know, you may have kind of a gray area opinion on this, but is there a place for factoring? I mean, there are people out there that rely on it and depend on it and use it. And for those people, generally it works okay, I think.
Yeah.
Until it doesn't.
Until it doesn't.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there's a place for factoring because, I mean, it's so prevalent in the industry. And it's not just the trucking industry that uses factoring. Factoring is in multiple different areas. But the key to using factoring is understanding what it is that you're signing and looking for an agreement that is beneficial to both you and the factoring company. You know, when you sign a contract that says you must give them all of your loads to factor and they decide which ones they're going to buy or not buy, I mean, that puts you at risk because now you've got to offer everything to them versus a factoring agreement where you can pick and choose the loads that you factor. So you use factoring for certain loads, but other loads that you know that client pays it quickly, you bill them directly. And you've got multiple streams of revenue instead of counting everything from that factoring agreement.
And part of the problem with these agreements are, and OOIDA had long said, hey, if you get into a factor, if that's how you're going to go, you know, make sure you know the duration of the contract. Well, and we've said, you know, maybe factor for a few months to get your head above water maybe. Yeah. But these factoring agreements, they're not written for a few months.
They lock you in for
long
term.
Yeah. Well, they got what's called an evergreen clause where, you know, it continually renews. You know, they'll keep you in the factoring agreement forever. And once you get a factor in your business, it's very, very difficult to get them out.
How often are you guys getting phone calls of people who are in these messes who didn't read the contract? How often does that happen?
Well, Jim laughs.
Most of them don't read the contract.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, and to their, I understand it. Who wants to read it? But it is super important to do that.
It is.
And if you don't want to, someone like you guys to have you guys read it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, contracts throughout the industry. I mean, whether it's your broker carrier agreement, because those are crap too, or your factoring agreement, or your owner operator.
Tell us what you really think, Tom.
Hey, well, you know, I mean, I've worked and lived through every segment of this, and I have spent time out on the road doing this stuff, and it will sink you. It absolutely will sink you. And I was not the best at reading contracts. I mean, I'm not going to say I never signed anything.
Who is though?
Yeah.
And those things are written to be confusing.
Well, and I think that the people that are presenting these to you, when you first call and talk to them, hey, I want to know about your factoring program. These people are experts at
They're
painting a
salespeople.
very
Yeah.
rosy picture for you, and you start to trust them, and you think they're not going to steer me wrong. I'll sign wherever.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a
and
good. Go ahead, Tom.
And I was going to say, when you're just a hardworking individual out there, and you do things above board or try, and you assume that everybody else is above board.
Can't
And
assume that.
These people, they see you coming.
That's a good point you bring up, Trevor, because there are two aspects to this, right? What you're hearing and what actually you're committing to when you put your name on that contract. Those phone calls, and you guys, I don't think are having those conversations with those people who are trying to sell somebody on factoring. But when someone's calling one of these factoring companies and someone's telling them this and that, are there particular red flags or things that if they're telling you that you should immediately be questioning, and what should those questions be? Kind of a broad question, but what things are like, oh, hey, watch out if they start talking about this or that.
As soon as they say non-recourse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or as soon as they
Non-recourse.
say short term, you can pick and choose. Don't worry about it. You can pick and choose what. No, I mean, if their lips are moving, they're probably lying.
Yeah.
Those are
It's
some of
just-
the big things. The non-recourse. You can pick and choose what you factor. We never charge you back for anything.
Oh, yeah.
It's the high pressure sales.
We do all
that
your billing
sounds
and
good.
collecting. I mean, and that's one thing that folks look at is, hey, I could get a factor and they'll do my billing. Well, to an extent, they will. They will bill for you. But if they're unable to collect, they're not filing on bonds. They're not taking people to court. They're not calling Guido to go get your money. They're just, they're going to come back to you to get that money back.
They're not going to do that hard work.
No, they're not.
They're going to put it off on you.
Yeah.
Right. Usually what you see is they've got a bad debt that they were unable to collect on. You just turned in your weekly billing for $6,000. And instead of them giving you that $6,000, they say, okay, well, here's this bad debt that we weren't unable to collect on and the $1,000 that's left over. So they will get their money back and you're the one that suffers for it. So it's important to understand how factoring works and to manage that, and don't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. You got to make sure that whatever factoring company you partner with is an actual good partner that's looking out for the best interest of your business.
It's a little cliche, but if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
It most definitely is. And these factors, when they're doing business with you, they have other products that they want you to use too. They want you to use their fuel card, for advances and different stuff. And you get so wrapped up, and if you don't have control of your finances, you don't have control of your business. I mean, that's it. Cash is king, and if you're not controlling what's happening in the collections, your customer relations as far as collecting and stuff, somebody else has got control of your business at that point.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
When winter strikes, stay running and stay ready with House. Diesel Treat prevents gelling, but if your fuel freezes because it's untreated, Diesel Lifeline works fast to reliquefy and de-ice. House, prevention and rescue for your diesel.
When you're having these conversations with people that call you that, maybe something's gone bad, or maybe they're looking into factoring and curious about it, do you just flat out just tell them don't do it? Or what exactly are you telling them?
That used to be our take way back in the day, probably 15, 20 years ago, was don't do it.
Yeah.
The problem is people are going to do it. It's just like, you were talking, Dad, you were telling us, and, he was saying,
little birds
we
and the
won't.
bees. Yeah.
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 Well, they're going to do it. So the best thing we can do at this point is educate them on what to look for. I mean, there are reasonable factors out there that are not just looking to, take everything they can from you and spit you out. There are some reasonable. I can't think of a name of one right off, but
We'll come back to you on that one.
yeah, but you're running your business. You have to make business decisions, and you have to decide what's going to work for you. And when you lose control of your invoice, of your cash flow, and based on something that happened on the way over here with a broker and a load that went bad, and you've already been paid for it, and then the fact that now you have no more cash coming in, I mean, it can go from bad to worse quick.
Yeah. And to add on to what Tom is saying, we do educate them on factoring. We also offer them some other suggestions on other finance possibilities.
Yeah.
There's a lot of brokers out there that will do quick pays. And if the broker's paying you a quick pay, well, that's the guy that's supposed to pay you anyway. So you're not going to get a recourse out of that where they take money back. And options of setting up a line of credit at your bank is also another thing that they have an opportunity to do, depending on what their structure is of their business and what their relationship is with their bank. So we educate them on factoring, and we'll review a contract. If they've got a contract and they want us to take a look at it, we will point out all the things that are in the contract that could be negative. In most cases, the factoring company is not going to change their contract. Their contract is what it is, and it's either sign it or don't. And then we will also offer them some additional suggestions on what they can do for financing as opposed to factoring. But at the end of the day, they're a businessman. They've started up that business, and it's up to them to make those decisions and decide what they think is best for their business.
But there are less risky things out there that you can consider. I think that's an important thing to circle and underline there.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, and like we was talking earlier, as far as picking and choosing, a lot of factors. Once you factor a broker, then they want all that broker's paper to come through you. Now, there are some factors out there that you sign and you say you will factor every paper that comes your way. You really want that choice to choose what and don't take the sales pig's word for it that you're going to get that choice. Read it in the contract. Make sure it's there. Because I was talking to a guy the other day, and we were having a discussion. He said, well, they told me, they said this and that. And I said, yeah, but I'm looking at your contract here, and that's not what it says in your contract. And now that your back's against the wall, they are holding you to the verbiage of the contract. It doesn't matter what they said. It only matters what's on paper.
That's right.
I can only imagine how pissed off you're going to be, and the people that you talk to are, when they find out that they've been essentially duped by someone who's taking them to the cleaners.
Yeah, when you got someone that's selling you a service and they're promising you the moon, if they don't put the moon in writing, you don't get the moon.
But and when you're a business, it's not like a consumer. Consumers, they have some protections. Somewhat, in a lot of things. There are some consumer protections. But when you're a business, you don't have a lot of those protections. It is, you're a business, you stuck yourself out there, and now, hey, everybody's going to come by and try to get into your pocket, and there's nobody to really save you from that.
Yeah. Let's keep doing Scared Straight. Give us some horror stories of people, people who've just run into the sawmill.
Well, what happens when the factor goes under? We dealt with that one too.
It's true.
I mean,
talk about that.
Well, that's
what was that? What was that? Convoy? When Convoy went under?
Yeah.
We also had another situation with a factor that two brothers owned the company. It was 3 levels below where these two brothers owned. So there's a corporation, and this factoring company fell in 3 levels below that. So there's a company here, an LLC, another one, and then there's this factoring company. And there were about 280 different businesses that were using this factoring company. But because the two brothers couldn't agree on who was in control, they froze the whole company. So the factoring company stopped paying everything to everyone. And now you had 280 different carriers, and nobody was getting any money. We did get involved in that, and we were instrumental in helping get that resolved. But it shut everything down. A lot of folks lost businesses, and that takes time to recover from that.
And another one was where we seen a factoring company that was not the greatest to start with, but then they sold out to another company, and they can sell your debt. They can sell your debt to somebody else. You don't have a choice over it. All of a sudden, you are answering to these people who you were bumping heads with already, and now you're answering to some new people that you didn't know anything about because they sell your debt. The way these contracts are structured, the factor, if they decide they don't want to work with you anymore, well, it's in the contract. They can give you 30 days notice and boom, they're out. They don't have to work with you. You decide you don't want to work with them anymore, doesn't matter. You're stuck.
What the contract says is what the contract
says. And that stuff is airtight. I mean, we've had people call and just really having a hard time with their factoring, and the factor's like, we don't care. You're here. We're taking your money, and you owe us. And if you want out, we'll give you a buyout, $20,000. You pay me $20,000, and we'll let you out. That is a real number that they really throw out there.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
You give us $20,000 and we'll let you get out of the contract?
Yeah.
And that's in addition to paying off all of the money that they haven't collected yet.
Correct.
That seems like a bad deal.
I would not, it always is.
So now we're not only pissed off, we're feeling hopeless and helpless.
Yeah.
What do you do at that point?
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you've had people, I know you have, talked to people who have had to shutter.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't do it.
Yep, absolutely. And one of the other things with factoring, when you get to the end of that contract, right? So you've given your notice like you're supposed to, 60 days in advance, you give them the written notice, and December 31st, my contract expires. Great, I'm done, I'm out. But then on January 1st, I try to collect a load from a broker, but I can't because the UCC lien is still in place until the factoring company has been made whole. Any money that they have that they have paid me that I haven't collected yet, they're not going to do anything. I can't get a lien release until they've collected all of the money that they've given me. So when you get to that termination, you either have to have another factoring company that's going to buy out your accounts receivable and take over, or B, you have to have saved enough cash to buy back your own accounts and then collect them yourself. Because until the factor has collected all of the money that is owed to them, they won't give you the lien release. So when you start running loads, now you're running loads in January and you're holding all these invoices because you can't bill them anywhere. If you bill it, it goes to the factoring company. And if you factor a load on January 1, it renews your whole contract.
Yeah, part of these contracts, they have a clause in there that says if you factor anything past your termination date, and this is a little window, right? Like 60 days before your termination date, you have a 1-week window in which to cancel. So if you send it to them, you cancel correctly there. So then past your termination date, you've got no money coming in, but some of your customers are still sending your stuff to the factoring company.
You're still on the hook.
So yeah, if you want that money, hey, call the factory. I need that money that you're holding. Man, that renews your contract. So you just talk about hopeless. I mean, you mentioned that earlier. Hopeless. Some of these people are absolutely hopeless, and it's not going to end. They can't shut their business down and start up a new business because they personally guaranteed that stuff.
Yeah. Now, there are companies out there that use factoring the entire time they're in business, and they never have any problems. They do everything, and everything works out great for them. But there are plenty of guys that have problems with factoring.
Is that the exception? The ones that never have a problem, do you think? Or
I would say
to put a percentage on it, I know. But
they're probably the ones that have a better concept of what's going to happen here, that aren't surprised. And because a small one-truck owner-operator, you go a couple of weeks without getting any money in, and all hell's coming down. It's like, damn, now what do I do? A bigger company, because some of the bigger, I'm not saying bigger, medium-sized companies would factor, but they've got a little extra cash for these types of situations so that they can deal with them. But when you're the driver, the mechanic, the financer, everything there, and then you don't get paid, your options are pretty slim.
You have to be okay with taking a level of risk, or you have to at least understand that you're taking on some risk if you're doing this, is what it sounds like.
The problem is that all the risk is on the small carrier.
Yeah.
The factor's not taking any risk.
Yeah.
We know the broker doesn't take any risk. The shipper's there, because the small carrier is on the hook for everything all the way around.
So the risk for an owner-operator, a one-truck or a two-truck owner-operator would be far greater than it would be for
anybody else in the chain. Yeah.
Tom, one thing you mentioned before we started recording, you've had people ask you, well, what else can I do? I have to use factoring. And I know you didn't use factoring, right?
I never used factoring.
Were you ever tempted to use factoring?
I I did go to my granddad and borrow some money one time.
Yeah, he was your factoring company.
He was my factoring company.
That's a good factor. That's a reliable and trustworthy factoring
You know what?
company.
And it worked out. I paid him back, and he was there.
Yeah.
He said, "Hey, if you need another $10, let me know." But but no, I never used factoring, and I know that a lot of folks do, and they come into the industry expecting that's the only way to do business, but it's not. But when I bought my first truck back, I don't know, in '99, I think it was. The number one, the profit margins were better. You could screw up and still have a little money left over.
Yeah.
So that was a help. But it's just I was never one of these owner ops that come into the business expecting somebody else to put fuel in my tank, expecting somebody else to fix my truck, expecting somebody else to buy tires and stuff. And there are so many folks out there now that come in just broke. And I mean, first thing that happens is they're hitting their broker up. Well, I need an advance. If you're living on advances, period, things are not good.
Especially early on.
Yeah.
Right.
And you come in, I talk to people today on a regular basis. They say, well, that broker said they would give me fuel money up front. I don't want to knock these people because they're out there, they're busting their asses trying.
Yeah.
But they came in on a preconceived notion that is just not really it's not real solid.
Yeah.
You
were talking earlier about consumer protections and that there is not really any, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but not a lot of or any oversight of these factoring companies. And I think that would probably come down to the contract, right? I mean, you're signing a contract, and that is going to hold up in a court of law or anywhere else you take it.
These factors are not banks.
Yeah, they're alternative financing.
Yeah, there's no
So they don't
banking
fall under the
regulations
banking
over them.
regulations.
It's whatever you agree to. If you agree to, you show up every Thursday, I'm gonna punch you in the eye, and you better be there on Thursday.
Well, hang on. Which clause is that? I want to make sure
Yeah. It's what you agree to. There are no regulations. There are no oversights. If you go to get a payday loan, if a consumer goes to get a payday loan, there are some oversights over that, right? I mean, wasn't always, but there are now, and they can't just totally scratch you. But there's nothing for a business to a business. They just expect you to lawyer up and go fight them.
And you're bringing up a good point, Tom, about the payday loan thing. It's nearly impossible to get out from under those payday loans once you've taken one. Same thing with factoring. It's true. Once you're in. They got their hooks in you, and they know it, and they own you.
They do.
More or less.
Attention all truckers, Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I want to talk to you about those dreaded tax problems. I know you want to keep on trucking and not even think about them, but let's face it, they're not going away all on their own. You need professional help. I've been helping truckers put their tax problems in the rearview mirror for years. I can help you too. Call me now for a free consultation at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com. It's like I always say, keep your eyes on the road, I'll keep mine on the IRS. 888-557-4020.
At Truck Stop, we built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truck Stop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Again, this is me being naive, I guess, a little bit too, and I hear you guys talking, and I've heard the horror stories too, and Ashley, I know you have as well, but you hear these things, and I can't help but think, how is this allowed, in
Who's going to stop it?
Well, and that's my question, and I know we're not going to solve it here, but are there conversations about putting more protections in place for folks? I guess it ultimately comes down to educating people before they sign the contract, but that's a frustrating thing, is because as you talked about, you get phone calls all the time from people who just think that this is part of the business plan and what they should be doing, which has got to be frustrating.
For trucking, because they call it a pervasively regulated industry, right? And that's why you don't have any privacy and, HEPA and all this.
It's heavily regulated for some people. On one side it is. For one side,
Yes, it is. I mean, the FMCSA, they regulate trucking. They don't regulate banks. They don't regulate factors. They don't regulate brokers.
Yeah.
Well, and they're supposed to be over brokers.
That's true. Yep.
But the Congress has told the feds, hey, you just deal with the safety-related aspect. and you getting screwed out of your money, that's not safety related. Although I would say it is for somebody.
I was just going to say, if you follow that down the line, though, what you're doing is you're pushing people out of the business who are, have been in the business for a while and are professional.
And how do
you're
you
getting
buy
less people.
tires or brakes or anything else when you're broke?
Yeah.
When you're out there trying, because what do you do? Just
cutting corners.
Let it all go away, and
you got to start cutting corners, and
then you start running longer hours trying to make up for lost money, and it's definitely safety related.
I would agree, but getting the feds to see it that way, because they say, well, what a broker does, that's not safety related. Well, it is.
Everything is safety related, though, if you think about it.
It is when you take it down to it all affects the driver, the owner operator of that vehicle, and their ability to repair, do maintenance, not work 1 million hours a week, this type of stuff. You want to talk about hours of service, how does it affect? Well, if I'm broke and I'm scraping and hoping not to lose everything I've got, do I start pushing the clock?
Not even to mention the mental mindset. If you're driving down the road with all this weight on your mind, how am I going to pay this? Or how am I going to get out from under this? Where's my next paycheck coming from? How am I going to feed my kids?
Stressing, losing sleep.
Are you focused on what's ahead of you and beside you?
Yeah.
That is very true.
We're having this conversation here now, which hopefully people will listen to and take to heart. I think another frustrating aspect of this is that you are talking to these folks that call into OOIDA after they've made this decision in a lot of cases. I assume you are talking some people out of it as well, I would hope, right? Who are doing
occasionally,
talking to you before. I guess as a broader question too, if we're trying to quote unquote solve this problem, what does that look like in terms of getting the word out to more people as they are starting in the industry, to let them know that this is not, this is not something you need to do. It's not something that you should be doing if you can avoid it. How do we get that broader message out? I don't know the answer to it, and I assume maybe you guys have thought about it a little bit.
Well, the problem is coming into the industry. There's no. There's maybe some training to get your CDL.
Louis always says there's no trucking for dummies.
There is no trucking for dummies. It is
a
on the job, learn as you go. And the folks that are in the industry that take advantage of people, like some of these factoring companies, brokers. You know how I feel about brokers. I always throw them out there. But the people that take advantage are looking for the newcomers, the people that don't know what's coming their way. The people that are just, hungry to go out and make a buck and start their business and do good for their family and just work hard. And, those are the people they're looking for because they think that everybody's on the up and up. Everybody's just like I am. They're just going to work hard. And yeah.
And it's very easy to get into the industry. It's very easy to get a trucking authority. Mm-hmm. You don't have to have any schooling or anything. A few $100s and you can have your trucking authority and be ready to go. Does that mean that you should? No, not at all. There's a whole lot more involved in it, but the process to actually get an authority and get running is easy. So if you've got a few $100s and you see, well, I can use a factoring company and I can get my money that way, then you jump in, you get everything going. Now you're in a factoring agreement. Then you realize, oh, maybe this factoring agreement wasn't as good as it should have been, but you're stuck in it. You're committed to it because you've signed the contract.
Yeah. And I know this is something that when OOIDA does Truck to Success, this is something that is talked about, factoring and educating them
startup
on that.
Money, all the
business plan,
is discussed. Yeah.
Obviously a huge thing there. But I mean, is it something that you guys think, again, I'm asking maybe dumb questions here, but is it something that should be part of the licensing process? Educating people as they're getting their CDL on these things? I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas, but it just seems like there are too many people walking into this industry who they've got targets on their backs from all these people who are looking at them as quick paydays. I can get them to sign this contract. I can, defraud them out of this if I'm a, broker or whatever it may be. I just
I mean, I
Wonder what it
think
could look like.
the more education that's provided to these guys when they're coming into the industry in all the different aspects of things that can happen and things that you need to know, the more information that you provide them, the better prepared they're going to be and the more successful they're going to be. I mean, it just depends. Are we wanting people to be successful, or are they just trying to rush people into the industry? I mean, here at OOIDA, we want everybody to be successful. So we provide as much education as possible to better equip them to be ready for the business.
But, and to add on to what Jim says, there are so many entities out there, these service providers, that you call up and, man, they will help you get your authority and get you out on, boy, we can have this done in 30 days, blah, 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 and shoot you out there.
Yeah.
When you call OOIDA, there's a different discussion that starts out. It's what is it that you want to accomplish? And, just based on the discussion or the conversation, we may definitely go a different direction, and talk to you about, well, maybe you should start out this way or go this direction. Or have you done your research on the industry to see that the rates are in the gutter and that it's really difficult to make money,
gonna be real rough,
and that these brokers are, not wanting to use new carriers and, so on and so forth. We'll have those discussions and never try to sell them their authority. That's what they called for. And if that's what they want, we will help them get that. But let's have some other discussions first.
Yeah. And a lot of times those other discussions where we're offering, hey, there's this avenue, there's this avenue, there's this avenue. You don't have to jump right in and get an authority. We explain all the other options that are available to them, and they evaluate that. Oh, well, it might be better for me to start off here and get some more knowledge before I jump into this. Thank you for that conversation. So, I mean, a lot of it
that's got
is
to make you feel good when you have those
education.
conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
If that's the result.
It does. It does. I mean, because we do talk a lot about the horror stories, because we do hear those on a daily basis. But there are also the folks that absolutely look to us, that call up and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? Then that's probably an hour conversation. Let's get into it. Let's think about what you're thinking and let's see what's realistic.
Yeah.
And we'll do that for folks, just sit and have a discussion with what it is they're wanting to accomplish and how they can get there.
Let me ask you this too. If someone calls you and they're wanting to get in the industry, or they're wanting to get their authority or what have you, you're having this conversation with them. If they're, I imagine that's obviously OOIDA members can do that, but is that a conversation you'll have with somebody who isn't yet a member who is thinking about getting into it as well?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we've had conversations with folks that aren't members. They'll call in, they'll get connected up with the compliance department. We'll talk through issues with them as well.
Yeah,
we'll definitely have those conversations. Now, if they have a lease they want reviewed or some contracts they want looked at, you know what? We are a member-supported organization. So for the measly price of $45 a year, join up. But
which could save you a lot of money in the long run.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and compared to granted, now we're not lawyers sitting around here. We're truck drivers and other business individuals.
We wouldn't have let you guys in here if you were. So, welcome.
I hope not. But we've read a lot of contracts. I mean, we know what we're looking for in these. And while I tell people all the time, it's not legal advice. It is decent advice.
Common sense advice.
And
experienced advice.
Yeah, and from somebody that has read this stuff before and knows what they're looking for. Because this stuff is not written for, just the everyday Joe to read it and digest it and say, well, I know exactly what that means.
It's written for the everyday Joe to walk away confused.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also thinking, you know what? I'm not going to read all this. I'm just going to go ahead and sign it. I'm sure it's like the app, the Apple,
Oh yeah,
the terms and
conditions.
terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Like nobody's reading that. And it's the same thing with the contracts. Yeah.
Is there anything? I mean, you've been doing this for years. Is there anything that surprises you that jumps out in a contract that you've seen as of late?
I have seen contracts just on this slippery slope. Since deregulation, really. But in the 90s, out there hauling. I never had a claim, never had issue. Of course, we didn't use factors, but never had a claim, never had any issues. Now, I think the way it's set up is the small motor carrier is the fall guy. That's the person that they're looking to. Everybody's looking at him as that's their mark. That's the person that's going to take the fall on this. Everybody wants to make money off of him until he, goes out of business and goes away, and then they know that 10 more will be here tomorrow to take his place. And that was the thing. Back in the 90s, we really felt like the brokers and, the business needed us, wanted us around, because nobody's going to make money unless that stuff's moving down the road. But as it's kind of changed up now to where they use you up until they tell you're of no use to them, there's no value in you, and then they'll spit you out and 10 more will come along and have no clue what's coming on, so they'll just keep on going. The bar for getting into the industry is just so unbelievably low. That's why we see all the non-dom CDLs, all this stuff.
Yep.
And it's because the bar is so low now that anybody can get in, and as long as there's a steady supply of bodies, man, there's just easy marks.
Well, and again, this gets back to the retention issue too, and being a safety issue. Every time I have one of these conversations and we talk to somebody about broker fraud or truck parking or restroom access or factoring, it all comes down to the fact that people are, truck drivers are not being treated, very well in a lot of cases, and the retention level as a result is low, and as a result of that, safety is compromised because you have all these people getting churned into the industry and then churned out, and the experienced drivers are not there as much as they should be in a lot of cases because they can't do it anymore, understandably.
Yeah, and the experienced drivers are aging out for one.
Yep.
But they're just saying, "Wow, I'm fed up. I want out of this. It's not what I got into." And if you're a young person coming into, guy or gal coming into this industry, how long are you going to stay when everybody's taking a shot at you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'll come in and say, now then you got folks like me who I don't know anything but trucking. It's all I've ever done. And if it wasn't for OOIDA, let me sit here and talk about trucking, I'd be in a truck. I mean, there's no other place for me.
Yeah.
But when you're a younger person, you don't do this for very often. You say, there's other stuff I can go do. I'm so young.
I'm not going to deal with this abuse.
Live in a truck and just be treated like crap. They won't let me in to use a bathroom, and I got screwed on that last load, and now this next load is trying to screw me over, and hell, I just need to take a leak, and there ain't no place to go. What do I do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we got tons of veterans that are aging out of the industry, retiring, leaving the industry. Then you got all the new ones that are coming in that are in the industry for a year or so, and then they drop out. So you're not building that next generation of experience. I mean, you've got a total influx that just continually churns over and over. None of those guys are going to have the type of experience that we have in the industry now. These older guys that are aging out of the industry. I mean, that's lost knowledge.
Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
Truckers, your engine works as hard as you do. Don't let torsional vibrations sideline your rig. Vibrotech TVD viscous dampers protect your crankshaft, cut downtime, and keep you earning mile after mile. Over 75 years of trusted protection made in the USA. Find a dealer at vibrotechtvd.com.
Now, I don't want to get too dark, but maybe we're already there. But, I mean, when I hear these conversations, and actually, we were talking with the board members, and they had a lot of great insights about, kind of the way things were. Tom, you were talking about this a little bit, and the way things have gone in recent years and have kind of, gotten worse in a lot of respects. Does it feel, and again, I don't want to get too dark here, but does it feel like there's got to be some sort of reckoning coming, or some sort of, event where it becomes more of an understanded thing, throughout the country among regulators, and making this better for everybody? Because
Call your elected representatives. I mean, that's where it's got to come out. It's got to come from Congress.
Yeah.
There's nobody else that can jump into this game and regulate anything any differently. I mean, Congress directed the FMCSA as to what to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Safety only. If the truck don't stop, then go get them. But
right, and with the new administration, I mean, we've seen some stuff being pushed forward. We've seen some good changes
quick
coming.
action. Yeah.
So it's a matter of what else can the current administration do, or what are they willing to do? But we just keep pushing that direction.
Is that something, though, that you could call them up and talk about factoring? I mean, is that I assume there aren't a lot of people calling lawmakers about factoring, because we don't see legislation on factoring or hear about it very much, aside from the horror stories when something goes bad. But I mean, is that a conversation that you'd recommend people
Well,
have
I mean,
as well?
somebody's got to put some regulation over them.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that that's a conversation that could be had. I mean, you didn't hear conversations about lease purchases, but then after the truck task force got together,
We saw action
there's
on that
now
too.
legislation
Yeah.
that's been introduced on that. So change can happen.
Yeah, it has
We
to
just gotta
start
keep
somewhere.
pushing for it.
Well, and a realization too with the lease purchase, the task force that came out, the truck leasing task force that came out, you had people on that panel who were pro, lease purchase. And eventually at the end, it was unanimous. They were all like, this business model does not work. Now, we haven't seen the right kind of action on that yet, but it does feel like we're
At least they're talking about it.
moving in the
motion.
right
Yeah,
direction.
Yeah, they've got some legislation that they're introducing on lease purchases now.
By the way, Jim was on that task force. So I mean,
Well, that's right. Yeah,
I was.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and you went in. That's right. You were a voice of reason for that one. Is it? I don't know. Is there a factoring task force we should? I mean,
Well, that would be-
I don't
Be
know.
a good idea.
That would be
It'd
an awesome
great
idea.
I'd volunteer to be on it.
If you
Yeah.
go back to the FMCSR, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, there are regulations that cover most everything in the trucking industry, but they're not all tied to quote unquote, and I use a little air quotes there, safety. There's stuff in there that talks about a motor carrier and how they deal with the customers, how they deal with collections and with billings and stuff like this. But it's gotten so far away from what regulation says, and there's nobody tries to reel it back in. There's stuff in there that talks about a motor carrier because you essentially give the broker a credit. You extend credit to them when you haul their load before you get paid. And now, so you give them a credit, and now you're paying a factoring company to retrieve that money for you earlier than what the broker wants to give it to you. It doesn't have to be like it is now. The regulations would have it be different, but unless you're the motor carrier, you don't follow the regulations.
Yeah.
The motor carrier is the only one they're enforced upon.
Is there a parallel, Jim? Because again, you were involved in that truck leasing task force, but is there a parallel that you could make between lease purchase agreements and factoring? Is that, and I'm trying to picture also who on the task force would be, promoting factoring. I imagine factoring companies would.
Yeah, factoring companies would.
But, is there a parallel there? Is that even a conversation that should get started?
I think it's a conversation that should get started, especially with all the issues that we hear.
Yeah.
Not to say that they should necessarily eliminate factoring, but put some controls in, put some rules in there, a structure of this is what your factoring agreement has to follow, as opposed to you can write in whatever you want and there's no controls, so you can do anything you want on it.
And that's the same with the lease purchase. These companies write these contracts up that are very one-sided.
Yep.
These factoring agreements are super one-sided. The broker agreements are super one-sided. Let's just have some common sense in contracting regulations, contracting law overall.
It would have to be a legislative fix, though, right?
It would have to be a legislative fix.
Yeah, but you can sit down and have that conversation, have a committee that gets together and have some folks from the factoring side and some of the trucking side that all get together and sit down. Okay, well, you have this clause in here. Why is this here? And I've had some of these conversations with factoring companies. Like, well, you have this in here. Why is it here? Oh, well, we don't even use that. Okay, so you can take it out. Well, no, but we don't use it.
Well,
then why is it
don't
there?
need it in there.
But
in some
that's the
cases,
thing.
they have removed stuff, but
It's there because they can fall back on it.
Right.
Because if it's there, then it's their backup. That's why I say the motor carrier's at risk. The factor, they don't have anything at risk.
Yeah. Well, I imagine it's a lot like, with non-consensual towing. There was an FMCSA roundtable. I can't remember how long ago it was, maybe a couple years ago, but they had all these tow companies come in, and the good tow companies said, yes, we are against these things, the non-consensual towing and all these things that we see in that industry. When you've got good towing companies who are upset with the ones that are doing wrong, I imagine you've got some of that in the factoring industry as well, too. The companies that are – Tom's making a face. There are some that are doing more right by others than others are. And I imagine they, too, would like to see those bad actors go away as well.
Yeah, I would think that the factoring companies that are trying to do right by their customers I would think that they would be in support of pushing out factoring companies that are predatory and trying to take advantage and take.
Yeah, and those are typically the guys that I forget the name of it, but the factoring association. It's an association for factors.
Yep.
That's one thing that I'll talk with people. When I'm discussing fuel cards with people, and they want to talk about factoring, and I'll tell them, yes, I'll be more than happy to send you over to our compliance folks. They can talk with you about that. But let me ask you first: are they a member of this association? And if they're not, find somebody else, because those are the ones that are trying to fly under the radar. They don't want to do the right thing. They're in it for one reason only. I found that, and not saying that just because they are a member of that association, that means they're good, but it's at least a step in the right direction.
Yeah. That'd be a red flag if they're not a member, because they're trying to maybe go under the radar a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if we've solved any problems today.
I don't know.
Ashley, well,
we certainly discuss them.
Yes. Well, and hopefully, again, if there are people out there who are considering going this route, this has scared them straight a little bit, or at least scared them to the point that they're going to ask the right questions and make sure that they're entering in knowing the risk that they're taking and what could go wrong as well. Final advice, final thoughts here as we kind of wrap things up. We can maybe go around the table.
I would just say that if you're looking to get into the trucking industry, and you're coming in and factoring is what you're going to do, step back and take a big picture look at your business. Have a business plan. Do it the right way, and you have a much better chance of success than just coming in just hoping things go good for you. Because just on hope, and they just don't always happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hope is not a strategy.
No.
And like Tom said, have a business plan. Look at all of your options, because there's plenty of options that are available out there. So you don't necessarily have to factor. If you're going to factor, make sure that you review the contract or have a professional that understands the contract review it so that you know what it is that you're signing. And don't just settle for the first factoring company that you talk to. Do some research, look at some contracts, and never agree to anything until after you've read the contract, because some of the factoring companies out there, another horror story, they will file a UCC lien on your company when you have talked to them about factoring before you ever sign a contract with them. So you got to be careful what you say and how you say it with these guys, because once that lien is in place, then it becomes difficult to get out. And a lot of those contracts have buyouts where, you want to cancel it right now, it's $5,000 and you've never even signed one. So you got to make sure that you do your research.
To tag onto that, Jim, vet them like you would your own doctor or your kid's babysitter, because it's that important. Use the resources that are available to you here with the experts at OOIDA. Sign up for Truck to Success. We're here to help.
Yeah.
Yep.
816-229-5791. I think it was important that you mentioned that even if you're not a member, you can educate and talk to people before they enter one of these contracts. If they're new to the industry, trying to get their feet in place, I think that's important. And obviously, these are the kinds of things that OOIDA helps everybody with, helps members with. Again, the idea being we want to make sure the industry is welcoming for everybody and everybody's got a chance to succeed out there. So 816-229-5791 is the phone number. Tom Crowley, Jim Jefferson, and Trevor Williams, we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
Great to be here.
Thanks for listening. Today's episode of Trucking with OOIDA was brought to you by a dedicated team of people. That includes Jim Fetzer, Tennille Flick, and Kim Boren.
You can listen to new episodes and extended interviews on your favorite podcast platform and on the OOIDA YouTube page. Please subscribe while you're there. If you've got thoughts, we'd love to hear them. Call us at 1-800-324-6856 and leave a message, or send us an email to podcast@ooida.com, and we might include it on the show.